right now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to eLearnChat, where talk is knowledge. And today we're going to do a little bit of talking. Well, joining me just a short distance away is Dawn Mahoney. Hey, Dawn, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. Good morning. I guess it's morning everywhere except in down under, but Jeff isn't on right now, so we'll go with morning.
He's in happy land, snoozing away.
He is. He definitely is. And it's a beautiful day here. So I already have the doors open. I'm glad to be doing that.
That sounds good. So anyway, today we've got with us a well-known person in the e-learning and training arena. And her name, you know her well.
I do. She's at Tricia Ransom. Yay!
At Tricia Ransom. We have at Tricia Ransom today with us. Without the at. We have Tricia Ransom today. Hey, Tricia, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great. I'm glad you could make it on today.
So am I.
She's here. She's really, really here.
Now, you're going to talk about something kind of interesting today that affects many of us at different times in life, or especially in different economies and different industries. And that is, was it how to keep your job? How to stay employed.
How to stay employed.
How to stay employed. Now, that's a good one. How does one stay employed in this crazy economy and industry?
For me personally, it's been relationships. I've had 4 or 5 jobs in the past 4 years, I think. I can fill out a W-9 or an I-9 W-2 faster than I don't know what. But what it is I now find work through people I know. Mainly my Twitter friends, like you guys.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Twitter is actually a great environment professionally. It's a lot of people talk about LinkedIn being a very good business environment, and it is.
It is.
But I find Twitter easier to get a hold of people, and I think people either respond quicker or more quickly, and LinkedIn is just a place everybody's on, but it's not the most engaging of places.
Do you think it's because because of the 140 characters we show ourselves to each other more than LinkedIn is more like a formal resume? Just a question.
I think that's some of it too, and I also think the format of LinkedIn, if you want to get to the point of the part of LinkedIn where there's interactions, where you can actually start to get to know people, you have to click and click and click and click and click, then find the group, then find the conversation, then scroll through the comments. Whereas when you go to Twitter or Hootsuite or whatever tool you use, it's just in your face.
Yeah, but there's not a lot of filtering going on.
So what do you think one of the best ways, aside from relationships, to stay employed is in the training industry, whether it's you're an e-learning developer, an instructional designer, a trainer? What's a big problem in this industry?
A big problem in this industry is what you just said. And are you an e-learning developer, an instructional designer, or a trainer? I am. I do it all. I've had to. I've been in departments of 1 or 2 for too many years. So I design e-learning. I've learned how to do voiceovers. I can do webinars. I can do classroom facilitation. I design instructor-led. I design communications even. So I think a big problem in our field is that we are trying to specialize ourselves, but you can't specialize yourself in a world that's changing so quickly, because you're going to specialize yourself into a corner that won't exist.
But how to address that in your CV information is always interesting.
People just don't know what to ask me. They just don't know what to ask me. But in a sense, that's good, right? And my resume is not the world's best resume. I'm not going to lie. In fact, it's kind of crappy. But what it does is it encourages conversations. So I'm confused here. You worked at a recruiting company. Were you a recruiter? I'm like, no, I was an internal salesperson teaching recruiters and salespeople how to do da-da-da. So it's not crappy in that there's typos and grammatical errors, but the layout is not all that great, but it does encourage conversation and
it's that whole
stories.
cobbler's children's shoes thing, right?
Pardon?
The cobbler's children have no shoes. You don't make your resume be you. I don't know what that is, but it's a pretty common story in our industry.
Well, and who has the time to do a resume? When you're working, who has the time to do a resume?
Right.
And when you're not working, you're hustling.
Also, one of the problems is that people aren't always that comfortable saying, "Hey, I'm great."
You've got to be.
And yet you have to be marketing or salesy enough to say, "Look, here's what I do it well, or I've done this, or I've been able to prove a trajectory of something that's been good." And if you put too much, then they go, "Oh, that person knows too much." I don't think you can ever know enough, but I've heard that actually said many times, "Oh, they know too much." So how do you get around some of that? And I agree, by the way. I don't think I've used a resume in 20 years, 30 years. It's like, you know what? Resumes mean nothing. And, we used to call them lie sheets. So therefore, once
sometimes you have to have them. The software systems demand them.
Yeah.
So I could probably put pink elephants on mine. But how you get around it knowing too much is. I don't say that I know too much, and I don't say that I'm an expert. I say I am good at what I do.
Sure.
And one thing that I do is that I am constantly learning, and that's what I'm best at.
Well,
constantly trying.
And that's important, because the more you learn, the more you stay on top of things. And when you stay on top of things, that just gives you the ability to be more flexible.
Exactly. And so, people ask, well, what do you know? What are those things called? The diagrams with the processes, the learning process of choice. I don't have one. It depends. And I just work. And I said, if you want, I will reach out to my network and get their opinion as to what they think is the best one and why and how it's worked. And I always tell people the thing that you get with me is that if you hire me, it's not just Tricia. You're hiring close to 1,000 people who are scarily smart and really good at what they do to help, and they help me work smarter and faster and look better.
I don't know why, but we're looking at Stephanie Harnett's homepage.
We got rid of that. It was a mistake.
That's what's showing here.
You're seeing that?
Yeah.
That's weird. Okay, something is.
But I think, to the point you just made, Tricia, where you bring your personal learning network, your PLN, and let people know that you're bringing that big old train behind you, is kind of a new concept. And I think recruiters and potential employers don't always know what to do with that information. How do you make it be something they want to engage in when you're talking about that?
When I start talking about Twitter or a personal learning network, the general reaction is, "What? You got what?" And so I pull out my phone. Or my iPad, and I open up Hootsuite, and I go to the learning and development stream, and I show them. I just flat out show them. I'm like, "Look, so da-da-da. Oh, look at this. Did you know that?" And I'll read a headline, or it might be something about management or leadership. And then, because right next to my learning and development stream is the news stream, and I follow news organizations from around the world. And so that's what I do. I just show them. You can't explain it. You got to show it.
Exactly. Have you come across anybody that's averse to social media in that way?
Yes. And so one of the things that I do, which is odd in an economy where training jobs are hard to come by, is I turn down a lot of jobs. I know me. I can't work without you guys. I just can't. And so if they're going to say no, then I'm going to have to say no to you.
Right, because you are going to be part of that, our little clique and our vast network of personal learning professionals.
Right.
Every day I add people to my Twitter stream. Every day.
Well, it's interesting. That's a good point, because a lot of companies, and to a point, all companies, see social media as an enormous distractor. And to a point, it is. It depends on the person. Some people use it effectively. Some people just screw around a lot with it. So that's part of the stigma of being on social media too much or being on all the time. And we've seen it in our company, and we've seen it in other places where you walk in, everybody's doing the quick control alt tabs, and it's like, if you're hiding it, then it must not be good. So it's like, and we even had the problem. We even had the problem one time. We had a person who was actually addicted to the internet to the point where we had to let them go.
Wasn't it Career Builder, I think, a few years ago? I had a button on their screen. It was one of them, but I think it was Career Builder, where you could press the button,
yes,
and it would change your screen to something
like a spreadsheet or something. Yeah. They used to call those the boss keys.
I have 2 monitors, and I just keep it up. And when people ask me, I tell them it's kind of like the one walking, in the wilderness, crying out in the wilderness, listen to me, this is coming. But it's the people where I work are always surprised at how much knowledge, information, and power there is in my network, and how much time I can save. Always, flat out. They never realize it. And Rick, to your point, the conversation about Twitter and social media now is, and I'm showing my age, is the exact same conversation I heard when instant messaging first came around. Mm-hmm. And it's the exact same conversation I heard when email came out. And this is a pet project. I want to go back and do research in the 1920s and read editorials about when the telephone was introduced into the workplace.
Yeah, I'm sure it's very similar. And again, like anything else, companies adjust to it. Employees have to adjust too, because a lot of people don't use it well. They use it badly. And so that's one of the issues when, I know why companies turn off like internet radio and all that, because it'll consume all their bandwidth in no time. If you've got 1,000 people all on the internet doing radio, your websites aren't being accessed. They can't get to you.
Right.
So things like that make sense. But yeah, it's such a great tool in so many ways to reach out to someone. And now a lot of companies don't have external networks easily available, but they do have internal networks. We work with some companies that have literally 500,000-600,000 employees. Mm-hmm. And they have an internal network that's probably as rich as any network you could find out there. And they can ping each other, and I think they use same time as a way to keep in touch and to... It's not the same, but it's at least a step in the right direction.
I think I got started with all of this when I worked at PricewaterhouseCoopers and IBM, mm-hmm. because they both had their own internal, and this was in the late 90s, and they both had their own internal kind of social media. So before you would go on a project, you could look up somebody in the IBM Blue, they called them the Blue Pages. You could look them up, see their picture, see who they had worked with, and like a little resume, and who they reported to, who they've been on projects with. So it was that same kind of thing, and you could ping each other back and forth, so you wouldn't have to send emails. And I became very comfortable with it. It's a smart way of working.
So there's a few questions out in the chat room when you're ready to take those. Back when you mentioned that you've turned down jobs, Leva asked, what kinds of jobs are you turning down? Knowing that sometimes there may not be another one coming. I think that's good information for all of us. We don't have to be order takers.
Right. The kind of jobs that I've turned down have been learning and development, any kind of learning and development. Usually it has to do with culture. I like to laugh. Yeah. I like to have pictures of Jimmy, because you guys all know Jimmy, my husband, right? I'm sure everybody knows about Jimmy. I like to laugh, have pictures of Jimmy up, have my Far Side and Dilbert, and I have been offered positions in places where that just is frowned upon. I've also turned down jobs that are too far away from me. For from where I live. And my focus is Jimmy. That's my life, really. That's where he energizes me. So why would I want to spend all my time at work or commuting back and forth to work? So I have certain, and this is key. I think this is one of the most important things about staying employed. You have to know exactly what you want and what you will do and what you will not do. And these are non-negotiables, and they're deep inside. They have nothing to do with salary or titles. It's your internal, I'm okay with commuting 100 miles, or I am not going to spend more than 15 minutes in a commute. It's those kinds of things, and you need to have those set before you start job searching.
How do you get to the point of discerning the culture piece? You mentioned Far Side. I wish Gary Larson were writing again.
Oh, God, yes.
You know, and that sort of thing. How do you do you ask to walk around and see what people, how do you get there?
When I go in for an interview, I don't ask to walk around, but you usually do walk around when you're walking to the interview room, wherever you're going to be interviewed. Always ask to go to the bathroom, because that gives you some free time and you can get lost coming back. And
your secret is no longer a secret.
Yeah, well, it wasn't that big of a secret. And I look at the cubes and I listen. Are there people in cliques whispering furtively in corners? That's bad. Or are people laughing, happy? Is it open? You can tell a lot by the body language of people. What's in their cubes? If there's no personal anything up from anybody, why not? Are they all afraid that they're going to close tomorrow? Those kinds of things.
Right. You can. Sometimes it's a feeling more than something you can articulate.
It's a gut. I told that to Jimmy. I said, I need to go. I need to have an interview, and I'll know as soon as I walk in the door.
Yeah. I agree with that completely.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. They're talking about Twitter and meeting people in face to face, which is kind of fun. That's how we met. We knew each other on Twitter first and met in person. At an ASTD conference, one of the wasn't it Open Sesame's party?
Probably. I don't remember, but I will say, I'm going to say this for all of us introverts out there, because nobody believes I'm an introvert, but I'm actually incredibly shy. Nobody ever saw me at a conference before 2010, 2011, did they? Or ever even heard of me? Because I don't do well. I cannot walk into a conference room full of people and say, hi, my name is Tricia. I just don't. I can't.
Have you ever tried saying, hi, my name is Sally?
Yeah, no, it doesn't work.
Didn't work.
I tried George. It didn't work. So, and I have said this over and over again, social media, and the reason why I got on social media is a whole story in and of me being employed. It's wonderful for people like me who want to network, but need to network where we feel comfortable, like in front of the football game, on Twitter, and in a way in which we feel comfortable, instead of handing out the business cards.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people think I'm very gregarious too. I'm not. I'm not.
Rick.
No, I'm not. I'm not that much of a mixer. If I go to a party, which I avoid like the plague,
Same here.
I'm the person in the corner.
Me and Jimmy stand in the corner, and we have a great time talking about people and whatnot, but we don't meet anybody. We just stand in the corner.
Yeah, I know that well. I feel the same way because I'm just not that gregarious. People go, well, you're not shy. No, I'm not shy anymore. I'm just not that social. And I always have that argument with people. Well, what if you're not social? How do you get into social media, which is so important?
It's easy.
And it is easy. It is actually
easy.
easy.
That's the beauty of social media. For people who are not social, I can turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
And I do.
Yeah.
I can turn it off. It's on my terms. And since I'm a little bit of a control freak, it's a wonderful thing.
Well, I know as a person who is remote from the office and has been for a very long time with a couple different employers, I found Twitter. I can't even really remember how I found Twitter, but Terrence Wing is the one that really inspired me to not only just have a Twitter stream running, but get involved in Twitter. Look, how many years later, here we are today. But that has made such a difference as somebody that is isolated from coworkers and other creative folks when I'm trying to come up with an idea. Our 15-minute or 10-minute flash chats to problem solve, it's been life-changing. That's the only way to describe it.
And it's funny that you bring up Terrence, because I used to joke that, without Terrence, I didn't think I ever... Yeah, I know. I never thought I'd meet anybody without, because he was like our proxy. Let me introduce you to a million people.
Yeah, he was a master networker.
And he was great at that. And he just had that... He had that sales personality where he can go out, meet anybody, and become friends quickly. So when he passed away, it was like, I'll never meet anyone again. It's like, it felt that way. Not to mention, when you meet people like that, it's that hole that they leave behind. But no, it's true. It's how do you develop those skills? That's a tough one. I think you have to have a certain amount of natural friendliness, if you will, and then you have to work on getting out there and doing things. Like for example, you were saying that, being shy, sitting in a corner. My wife and I have been exactly the same way. We go to a party, we're in the corner, eventually we leave. Nobody knows we were there. Nobody knows we left. It's good.
It's good. It's fine.
It's fine. I have no issue with that.
Invitations for all kinds of things, and I'm good. But my husband is the exact opposite. So he loves to be around people.
Okay.
And I'm always like, why do we need to be around people? Can't we just order it online? There's got to be an app. Why do I have to talk to people? But there are the social media, two things for me. It's allowed me to network, so I could actually be here today, which is really scary. But
we put you in the corner, right? So you feel comfortable there.
I am. Yeah. I literally am in the corner. But the other thing it's helped me is I've been at jobs where the learning and development or training department or whatever is staffed by people who are not L&D people. And sometimes they don't necessarily care to learn or to stay up to date. And so my social media contacts have just saved my sanity in those cases by reminding me that, yes, there is more than just PowerPoint with bullets, instructor-led courses.
That brings up a good point, that very few people really do keep on top of their game, whatever that game would be. They don't really keep up on the latest technology, the latest happenings, latest techniques, theories, books, anything. They just don't keep up. They do their job, and as time goes on, it gets more and more mediocre because things change. Mm-hmm. And one of the problems there is most corporations, or a lot of them at least, don't really have a learning environment. They don't really create that environment because you're there to do a job, whether it's a drone-like job or not. And what happens is, in many cases, the people who wind up getting either promoted or something, they're either political, which is bad, or they're actually doing something that makes them stand out, whether it's providing good service or whether it's knowing more, or they're the people that everybody comes to for answers. And then other people go, well, how come that person made it? Well, look at what they do. Look at how much they know about a certain thing. And in the L&D world, if you work in a company, for example, let's not even talk about colleges. That's a whole different world.
Oh, that's a whole different.
But if you work in a company and you don't know what the company does, when you get fired, you probably deserve it. Because you have no idea what's... Yeah, probably. I mean, you have no idea what's going on in the company or why you're even working there. And that's been an issue with training departments for a long time, that they don't adjust to changes in the company. They take too long to develop materials. They take too long to do a lot of things. And that's an issue because I'll give you an example. When we do development for clients, we do things in 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks that take them internally 6 months. And they can't understand why we're fast. Well, one, that's our job. We're focused on being quick. But two, we have deadlines they have very loose deadlines. Not all companies, but we've seen that a lot in some companies.
Suggestions. Yeah. But I will say, because as you were talking, I was like, yeah, there's another thing. Learning and development has changed. And I think as a field, it's been fascinating because ever since I've gotten on social media, I've watched this change and it's been fascinating me. But I don't think that we're going to, that we as learning and development are going to force companies into a learning culture and into a learning environment. So, okay. What do we do instead? How do we get around it? And that's where that performance support comes in. And also for me, it's the communications. There's we create so many courses that do not need to be courses. They can be a 30-second commercial because that's all it really is. To me, training, learning, development, commercial, marketing, advertising, they're all the same thing in a sense. And so why do we create an e-learning course that you have to log in and go through the objectives and da-da-da-da-da-da? For example,
I don't.
Honest to God, I had to take a course. It was in the required e-learning course on the necessity of taking required e-learning courses. Seriously. Because people weren't taking the required e-learning courses, so they created a course to tell us to take the courses. That could be a commercial, a 30-second, quick. People don't have time also for long, drawn-out courses. So that's one of my big. Let's learn from other areas.
Also, that comes into
that did you take it? They want to track that SCORM information.
Why? Can you do your job?
Well, also, haven't you guys noticed that a lot of the training is completely and totally out of context? It's out of context with what you do, why you need to do it, why you need to know this, or anything else. And as a result, people take and have no idea why they're taking something, and they're done. They go, okay, well, that was interesting. I haven't learned anything from it. They may have completed it. If we're talking compliance, that's a different thing because a lot of those.
I'm not talking compliance.
Yeah, that's a different thing totally. But there's a lot of courses people don't, which may not relate to their job functions, and they don't know why they're taking it.
And when you talk about context, I'm going to throw in two other things that as instructional designers we forget because we listen to the SMEs. Number one, the language, the words, the flat out words. Get rid of legalese, marketing-ese, and SME-ese.
Yeah.
And number two, the look and feel.
Yeah.
Make it look and feel like it's supposed to. I mean, if you are designing an e-learning course, if you're designing a PowerPoint presentation for an instructor-led course, and you have to have the company logo on the bottom or on every single asset, you've got bigger problems. Because if your people don't know who they work for at that point...
I just don't do it. That's it. I don't do it.
So, but the words and the look and the feel, and we always forget. The words especially, that legalese. Oh, God.
And let's not even talk about totally non-attractive courses. No contrast, no graphics, nothing important.
But there'll be a string being clip art.
Oh, yeah, lots of clip art. PowerPoint clip art at its best. That's a whole different topic.
I use PowerPoint clip art a lot, but I've learned how to ungroup it and regroup it and make it be what I need it to be, rather than what it started off as.
Right, that's true. And that kind of brings up an interesting one. That when you deal with graphics, if you download a picture of something, well, that picture is probably 10 pictures by the time you get done with it.
Oh God, yeah.
And a lot of people just put in a standing picture. Here's a standing person pointing. And I go, well, that's it? Just a standing person pointing? Doesn't that look kind of crummy? Why don't you cut the person up, do different things, just put a hand out maybe from that person? And they go, really? But they're not graphic artists in many cases.
See, and this is what I'm talking about. When I say I'm a broad specialist, but a broad generalist, but specialist in nothing. I know nothing about graphic arts, but what I do know is how to use the crop button in PowerPoint to chop somebody off at the waist and kind of plop them into a chair that's hidden behind a desk.
Yeah, none of that is difficult. It's just how you see it.
Yeah, and nobody will ever know that is all clip art because it looks like a person sitting in a chair. You can do that, and I think people forget. And that's some of the things about the learning and growing. I did not learn that in my master's degree. I didn't learn it. I learned it on my own thanks to Twitter. And I have to tell you this because how I got into Twitter ties this whole thing about being employed all together. Have I ever told you guys how I found Twitter?
No.
I was working at a job. Yay! 3 whole years I was there, and it was the summer, and I knew that I was probably going to get laid off because my coworker was working on redoing the whole onboarding thing, and I got to work on social media for the recruiters and salespeople at the job. So this is a key for anybody. If you want to know if you need to start looking for work, look at your assignments always, flat out. If you're not working on the onboarding or the one and making presentations to the muckety mucks, start looking for a new job. Period. That's how I stay employed. So I was sitting there and they're like, well, there's this Twitter thing, and the company I worked for, they recruited people for contract positions and full time. So Tricia, we need you to teach our salespeople and recruiters how to use Twitter. I'm like, what the hell is Twitter? I'm sorry, I used a swear word. Oh.
You're the first one ever in the history of 100 plus shows of eLearnChat.
So I got on Twitter and I was like, and I thought it was stupid. I really did. But I had to keep going back to get screenshots. And I personally have to have a story when I create e-learning or else it doesn't make sense. So I have to follow a person. And the person I was following was trying to find somebody who knew something about instructional design. And I found Marsha. And then I looked at Marsha's contact list, and I followed all those people, and that's all. And then I found ELearnChat, and that's it. That's how I found Twitter. I found Twitter, which then got me the job with Stipton, when I worked with Shannon Stipton, as well as both of these jobs now with Ann Montague, because I was being laid off of the job. It was the best layoff ever.
There you go.
Yeah, you never know. You never know.
Do we have any more questions right now in the chat room?
Oh, we're just chatting away on various and sundry things, how we don't use corporate logos. We're going to get smacked for not using corporate logos.
I get in so much trouble for not using Rick, do you? For not using corporate logos or changing the colors. Sometimes those.
Yeah, we can't. We don't mess with any corporate logos. We've gotten whacked in the past. You can't make any changes.
But I just put a white box over them.
We don't put them in unless people want them. And some clients want it, and you have to put it in. But then they usually kind of obscure. They're not really prominent. Now there have been some we've done where it's like the logo's half the screen. Like, really? You need it that big?
Really?
Yes. We need people to know where they work. Yeah.
I put a lot of times I'll just change like the slide master and put a white text box over it, and if somebody says something, make it reappear.
That's right. It's on vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah, my rule of thumb is it needs to be on the first and the last, and then I'll concede to that. And in the e-learning template, if I'm stuck and have to, it's going to be a really small little screen asset in the lower left-hand corner. I'm going to do the minimum.
Corner. Always the lower left-hand corner.
Now, there is a reason a lot of companies, I think, do put the logo everywhere, especially if they have a lot of turnover. People probably don't know where they work, or they're all new, so it's probably one way of doing it. But it's an excuse, but I think that's one reason why a lot of people have it, or they are branding to the point they're trying to really inculcate that logo into people's brains and leave it there. Because really,
Right.
you're right. If you don't know where you work, that's a problem.
Right, you went for the interview, but orientation materials, sure.
Sure.
Some of the onboarding, especially if you want to, in my world, we're dealing with, frontline associates, and we're trying to foster language and usage of certain terminology and all of that goes with some of the branding pieces. That all, I think, is a separate conversation from, I had to take an e-learning course on how to ship through FedEx, and that was really a waste of time, but it was mandatory. So anyway, some of those things, it's coming to you from your learning portal. You don't have a choice. You have to go to your intranet to get to it. It just doesn't need to be blasted with a corporate logo on every slide. It's laziness,
you logged in, you had to use your corporate email address or whatnot to log into the LMS, to get to the intranet, to get to the course, and every page of that is already branded. It's there. I wrote anyhow, yeah, these are some of the things, and but people ask, I get very passionate about what I do, but you got to learn to fight your fights, right? I will fight for my learner every time. The corporate logo, I might let that one go if it means that I can get rid of legalese.
Yeah, or can we translate it into language that the learners actually understand?
Exactly.
And I'm talking English to English here, not German to English or something. Fiona asked a question in the chat pod. She says, how do you really say no to a SME or client when you know their way will produce poor learning? What's your take on that?
It's taken me many years, and this is what I do personally. I read through everything that they have, right? And usually it's really good in deep down, because this is what they do, right? They know it and they want to share it, and I do it myself when I'm when I'm mentoring other people. I go in full SME mode. But what I do when I know it's going to produce bad e-learning, I say, how about this? If there were only three, and I give them three, if people would walk away remembering 3 things only about this topic, what are those 3 things? And they tell me, and I'll say, that's going to make up the bulk of the course. Now, everything else you've said is critically important as well, and I don't think we should lose it. How about if I put those in links, like resources, or click here to learn more, or for a deeper understanding? Or what if we do 2 or 3 courses, like a 101, 201, 301? So that's how I usually handle it. And there's never any time to get to the 201 and 301, so it's all good.
Yeah, it's gone, goes away.
Well, guess what? Tricia, you survived. You survived the hot seat.
Oh my God! Thank God.
We are at the.
I have been so nervous. You have no idea. It's over.
And here it is. It went by in a blink.
It went by really quickly, and it wasn't that bad, was it?
Rick, you have no idea what's happened to me in the past 12 months, and no, this wasn't that bad, but this has made me more nervous than almost anything else. And just so you know, I'm talking moving across country, getting a new job, getting laid off from that new job I moved across country, getting diagnosed with cancer and beating cancer. And this scared me more than anything else.
Even if you knew we were going to be here with you?
Well, that's what scared me.
Hey, you know, Dawn, our reputation precludes us, yeah.
Oh, you guys.
We're on that interweb thingy in a few places. That must have been it.
And this has scared me more. I've been freaked out. So thank you for making it relatively painless. Although, Rick, may I just say, it would be nice if I could just see you move, see your little face instead of the static picture.
Well, you could have. I guess you could have gone online if you have enough bandwidth and seen the show. There's just a lag as we're broadcasting live.
Oh, that would freak me out.
Yeah, so you'd see yourself
That's why I didn't
talking and
bring
then
that
you'd
up
see yourself
yesterday.
responding. So it's a little So, and unfortunately, we don't have webcams on the Skype machines because then you would see the side of our heads because the machines are over here, and cameras are this way. So it's a little inconvenient.
Maybe a slideshow, right?
A slideshow. I don't think Skype lets you, but that would be interesting.
See, if you don't know, you could just try it.
That's true.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, I don't
Just
think it does.
saying.
I don't think it does. You only have a profile picture. That's all they allow.
I mean, it's a nice picture of you, Rick. It's just that it would be nice to see other pictures. Oh, and Jimmy says hello to both of you, and Dawn, he's sorry
Jimmy.
about the fact that you're a Green Bay Packers fan.
He thinks that's okay.
No.
Come on, Jimmy.
He was born in Chicago, grew up in Chicago, lived in Chicago his whole life. He can name Bears players back when the Cardinals played the Bears.
Wow.
When the Cardinals were in Chicago.
That's pretty good. Well, before we get into football too much, for all you guys
Sorry.
in the chat room, thanks for being there. And if you're watching the show, please subscribe, and we will see you next week. And next week we have a guest co-host because
Right.
Dawn is going to be on the road somewhere. Are you on the road or on vacation?
I'm going to the presentation summit in Florida. It's in Fort Lauderdale this year.
So we have Diane Smith, who I think all you guys know. She's going to be here as a co-host for the day.
Yay!
She was
So I
on.
look forward to that and say thank you to Diane in advance for doing that.
That sounds great. So anyway, you guys have a great one, and we will see you all next week on eLearnChat. Thanks, Tricia.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.